Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. It's the middle of the week, and we're going to continue on with this week's theme of lush productions. Today's song we have Rolo Tomassi with Flood of Light. We checked out Rolo Tomassi last week or the week before, I don't remember. It was for Unique Vocals Week, and they quite surprised me. And full disclosure, I have heard this song just last week. I dove into this entire album, Time Will Die and Love Will Bury It. So I have heard this song once before. So not a true reaction, I suppose, but there's still a lot of really cool things going on in here. I think it is a perfect fit for Lush Production Week. So let's dive into this and see what's going on. It's a really wide sound coming off of that ambient intro. I love how the bass bounces back and forth between working with the guitar and some of the melodic or the textural elements, and then the drum with the rhythm elements. Really great bass presence here, as well as those ghost notes on the snare. Yeah, and the last section we were in with the harsh screams was in a 3/4 feel, or 3 feel, most likely 3/4. This one right here is in a 7/4. Yeah, and I like how the drums are playing it like it's an 8. So one phrasing is going to be on the downbeats, or emphasized downbeats. The next phrasing is going to be emphasized offbeats. There's a really interesting 3 against 4 idea here, where that synthesizer was working within a 4-beat pattern. Yeah, I love how this section really works on the floor of the sound sphere, and it leaves all this empty space up top that we know vocals or another instrument is going to come in and fill. But it allows a bit of contrast with that really full sound we just got out of to provide this sparse element. not only foreshadowing what's about to come, but also contrasting with what came before. I think it's also interesting how both types of vocals are pushed down into the mix. Everything prior to this moment has been sort of harsh, with a bit of negativity in the atmosphere, emotionally. And I love how this finale just really brings up these elements of uplifting aspects. Yeah, even with the harshness, the music is still very positive. Drums are really hammering home a triplet idea. They've been doing that for a while now. So once again, we do have a 3 against 4 idea. It's just this time we have 4 in the main meter, rather than 4 being the outlier of the meter. I love the placement of the voice in that last line. I don't know if that's how it is throughout the rest of the song, given that the vocals are never isolated in any of the other sections, but it isn't really centered. It's sort of, pushed out to the sides, and I really hear it more in the left and right kind of panning than sort of a center sound. And I think it works. It works really well for that ending right there. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in this track. We bounce back and forth between some heavier rock, heavy metal, heavy rock stuff, and some almost poppier ideas. We also have some heavily textural stuff pushed against melodic ideas. We have quiet and soft. There's a lot of contrasting elements going about in this song, and as longtime viewers know, that is my cup of tea right there. I love contrast. I love listening to people figuring out ways to combine different things together into a cohesive musical experience. It is just, yeah, that is where I'm at. And as I mentioned, after listening to Aftermath and Rituals, I think, was the 2 tracks we listened to on Unique Vocals Week from this group. like 2 days later, I went and checked out this whole album, which those two songs came off of. I was just completely enthralled with those two songs back to back and seeing basically the two extreme odds that this band can operate in. And Flood of Light, I think, is probably one of my favorite ones off the album, just because of the way that it combines those two disparate parts of the band into a cohesive concept that explores interesting thematic ideas. I probably should pull up lyrics for this one just in case, but oh, hmm. All right, I'm gonna dig into that in a second. Let's look at some of the music though. So the song starts out. We have this ambient opening, and it really presents the idea of the atmosphere that the song is going to be in for the next 7 minutes. It's sort of bittersweet. There's definitely joy and happiness in it, but there's also some elements of melancholy. And it's this really beautiful mix of those two concepts. And then immediately from there, there's no real build up. It's a real harsh transition into the first verse. We have harsh vocals. We have a super gritty, dirty guitar. We have some really fuzzy, dirty synths as well. The bass is hyper present. We've moved into, well, we've moved from a timelessness into three. I think this is the three section. Now, opening timelessness is interesting because I tried to figure out the time signature based on a perceived beat against how long these notes were being held out. Because a lot of the movement in the intro was based on like effect fluctuation, whereas the actual notes that would be put on paper, it was just these ridiculously long held out notes. So I was trying to figure out possibly if the effects are based on a pulse, based on a beat, how many beats are there going to be per long note? And I never really landed on anything. I think it might have been utilizing the seven that we see a little bit later. I think during the chorus is when we hit the seven. Maybe. But I never really picked up on it, but I don't think that's the purpose of it. Like I just mentioned, that opening has a timelessness to it, and I think that is perfect for going into this track. You're not really supposed to feel a vibe yet, or sorry, you're not supposed to feel the time yet. You're just supposed to feel the vibe, the emotion of the section, and that's really what they're spotlighting right there. I think, which is why we don't have any rhythmic elements there in the intro. We move into the heavy section. We get all this stuff coming in. We get the 3/4. We get all this loud, fuzzy, distorted stuff. And I absolutely love that contrast. It is just, it's such a huge jump. But we could have made this jump with any sort of distorted instruments and achieved a similar effect. But there's something about the type of fuzziness, the type of destruction that they put specifically on what I want to talk to is the synthesizer and the guitar, or the keyboard and guitar. They are both right panned, I believe, and they are just providing this super crunchy, gritty. It's so different from that clean lushness from the beginning, having that real vibrant sound in the sound floor. Moving over to the section where you can barely even distinguish the original timbre of these instruments. They are just so destroyed and distorted. And like I said, it's this drastic contrast. We could have achieved a similar effect with less crunch in those instruments, but it's pushed to 11. It's divide. It's such a larger divide because of it, and I think it's extremely effective at doing that. We move to the next section, the chorus. Actually, I do want to point out there are some really cool jumps between cleans and harshes in that opening section as far as the vocals go. And I think it's very interesting. I mentioned this at the end, that they're both in the same placement in the mix. I've mentioned in the past that some more popular harsh styles or popular rock music that uses harsh vocals. Usually not as often, but maybe they'll use them to emphasize certain lines, or maybe like metalcore. We tend to have harsh uh, verses and then clean choruses. The harshes tend to be put above the band. And that is kind of where I would expect it to be in this song, especially with this style. It is, to me, a pretty metalcore style, and if they'd follow modern traditional mixing practices for the genre, I'm kind of expecting with this type of music to have the vocals above the band. And they're not. So that puts me in the mind of some other more extreme metal stuff like black metal, where and death metal, maybe death metal, where the growls get pushed down into the band and are kind of seen as part of a wall of sound occasionally, and also just as another instrument, another texture that's in the sound that's created from everything else in the band. It's not seen as a spotlighted element, it is just another part of the band. And the harshes here kind of sit in between those. They're still very clear. I would say they have a little bit of spotlight to them, but it's not done to the effect of more popular musics, and it's not pushed as far down as some more extreme types of metal. It's sort of in its own little pocket, and I think that's kind of cool to begin with. But then the cleans come in because they do go back and forth, and you get a very clear representation of where both of these vocals sit, and the cleans are in the exact same place. And I have very rarely heard cleans that are not in the spotlight. Uh, I can't even think of an example of even a clean that would be pushed way down. That would just be, completely, um, just really put into the mix. It's just such an anomaly to me that I can't even think of an example for it. But here it is again, just kind of pushed a little bit down. Every time the clean vocals came in, my brain was like, "Hey, I wish those were a little louder. I wish they were a little bit more present." But I think it would take away from some of the more interesting aspects that are unique to the band's production. Like I said, I just want to point that out because it was just something that occurred to me the entire song, the entire time I checked out the album as well. The vocals are they're not mixed like pop or rock vocals. They're not really mixed like metal vocals. They're kind of doing their own thing, and I think it's always cool when a band is out and trying to find their own way rather than utilizing what common practice would be. That always fascinates me. All right, so after the heavy section with the alternating vocals, we move into a more chill section. We have clean vocals here, and I think this is where we move to the 7. And there are some really cool things that happened here that I think I pointed out, but I just want to go over real quick again. One, we shift from a 3 pulse to a 7 pulse, and the drums are doing some ghost hits on the snare, and the snare hits there's actually when the drummer goes to hit the snare full force rather than little taps to get those little ghost notes. It's I think it was done in pockets of like 2 and 3, like 2/8 notes, or like a 16th into 2/8 notes, or maybe it's just like a pickup eighth into 2/8, um, something like that. Anyways, the cool thing is though is that they're used to accent specific beats, but it's not always the same beats. Well, it is, but it's the same beats in a different meter. The drums are actually written in an 8 pulse, I think. But what it means is that if it starts on beat 1, and maybe we get beat 1 and beat 4 as getting accented notes, if we were sticking with the 7, the next accent would be on beat 1, and then 4 again. And then there'd be, a shorter gap between 4 and 1 because we only go 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So we're striking on the 4th beat rather than on the 5th beat. So what's interesting though is that he treats it like it is equal. so that the accents are equal distance between each other, not equal distance within bars, but within beats. So there's always 3 beats between the accents. And what that means in 7, where there's an uneven amount of beats per bar, is that the next time it comes around, they're not going to be on the same accented beats. Instead of beat 1, it's going to be on beat 2. And it creates this sort of delayed effect. Now, I think there is an artificial relining up somewhere in there. Maybe it's every 2 bars, maybe it's every 4 bars. Yeah, because it would artificially, or it would naturally line back up every 7 bars? Because we're 1 off and there's 7 beats. Yeah, I think it's every 7 bars it would line back up. So I think there is an artificial lining back up. Maybe there's some sort of fill that's done at the end of bar 2 or the end of bar 4 that allows him to start the accented beats on beat 1 again, rather than waiting for it to the pattern to naturally resolve against the 7/4 time signature. But it is a really cool idea of creating new syncopation while utilizing an odd time signature. And what it does is create this push and pull where the time signature in the guitar and vocals, the phrasing that they're utilizing, the 7-beat phrases, sort of creates a hiccup because you're expecting that beat 8 compared to what the drums are doing. And it's this really cool sort of unaligning that goes on. I don't know if that's just something that they did because they enjoy creating that. I've heard a lot of songs from them where they're really good at creating chaotic elements in their music, and it might just be an aspect of their composition style, or if it might have something to do with the lyrical themes that are going on, some sort of separation between people or ideologies or something, some sort of divide in the thematic elements. But it is really cool. I love rhythmic syncopation and just kind of doing it from that angle and playing around with meter and phrasing within odd time signatures. Yeah, 100%. I love that. We go back and forth between these 2 sections a bit, and then we go into our second calm section. It's very reminiscent of the intro in that it's mostly a synthesizer, I think. And we create, again, this little floor bed of building a specific emotion. And I mentioned it. I think I talked about it too much because I don't like to talk too much during the video. I don't want to talk over the music. It stops me from hearing it, stops you guys from hearing it, or kind of clutters it up a little bit. But I did talk a little bit about how it was a contrasting element from the super wide section that came before it to sort of just this floor, and contrasting the large to the sparse, while also providing a lot of empty space, foreshadowing what was to come with more instruments filling it up, because we know from the beginning of the song that that's what this band does. They're very good at creating these very wide, very large soundscapes. And, we get to hear that they're using a very minimal amount of space here. Where are they going to take it? What are they going to add on top of it? And I love that sort of anticipation. And of course, they do add things onto it. And then we get our outro. And I think our outro is a fantastic showing of sort of the emotional themes that are going on. The first half of the track utilizes a lot of darkness and more negative emotional elements in the theme, or sorry, in the atmosphere. So some of the textures they're bringing to it. The ending showcases the opposite of that. It's a very bright, it's a very warm finale as far as the musical instruments go. And I do think it's interesting that the ending, we get to hear those harsh screaming vocals on top of this very warm, inviting musical concept. We have the heaviness of the vocals, but we've lost that gritty, edgy aspect from the guitar and the synthesizers that we heard in the beginning. I specifically mentioned because of this ending. I think it's so important that we can still have an electric guitar. We can still have some distortion in our instruments to create this heavier element while bringing in some warmth to the timbres and some like comforting bright tones in the chord work that's going on here in the end, to showcase how the same instruments can show both light and dark. It's a beautiful, beautiful little journey that the instrumentation goes on. The song is called Flood of Light, which probably drives a little bit of my analogies of light versus darkness. Um, these lyrics are very vague. They seem to be a bit open to interpretation, but there's something that I think kind of stands out. It's all in the ending. Um, and it says, after all this time, when the rain comes down, an anchor grounding me to navigate what's left behind, what lies ahead. It can take the worst to find out, but there you are always. This idea of the anchor grounding them. Oh, and right before that it says, an anchor eternally grounding me to navigate a darkness until a light so blinding burns through the fog, it's never in doubt. It definitely seems to be about someone or something that anchors a person, it grounds them whenever things are getting chaotic or stressful or anxiety induced or possibly sorrowful. Anything that would really take them out of being centered, maybe mentally or emotionally. There's always somebody there. Well, it says, but there you are always. So, yeah, a person, I would say, not a thing, a person that helps somebody stay centered in their life. So I really love this evolution from darkness in the beginning to brightness at the end, that warmth, that comfort, that joyous, beautiful ending musically, and how that's still paired with the chaotic singing. I don't know if they did that intentionally, but I think it's interesting, assuming I'm correct with this idea of, life getting you stressed out or whatever, and then somebody being there to, bring you back and center you, and having that brightness, that warmth, being the person who centers you, and then the screaming vocals being, you in a stressful situation or whatever, and then it ends with the screaming turning it, resolving into clean vocals, and then we get those final repeated lines, the "but there you are always." We get those in the cleans. So yeah, just a fantastic journey right here. Um, and some really nice ways that the lyrics and musical themes align. The production, though, the production is just good. I don't know if I have anything particular to say about it, which is interesting. It is Lush Productions Week. Having heard this song again right now, I'm not too sure why it was selected for Lush Production Week, but there are some sections in here that I really love, production wise. Like I mentioned, the edge and grit on the guitar and synthesizer at the beginning of the track, I thought those were done really well at providing the width that they really needed to fill out the soundscape for that opening section. And then, of course, some of the synthesizer parts in the intro and the bridge with those sound floors. And I did mention some of the production work on the vocals there at the end. Again, I'm not sure if that's present throughout the song, but I really enjoy how they're not really centered, which is interesting to me. Throughout the song, they sound centered, but when they're isolated, I really didn't get that centered feeling. They really felt like they were pushed apart a little bit. The dual tracks, so yeah, just a really great song overall. And this is probably a track I would introduce people to. Uh, I would introduce Rolo Tomassi to people if I had needed to be like, hey, I just found out this awesome band through this amazing community that helps me find music, and yeah, you should check it out. And they're like, oh, what song? Yeah, Flood of Light. That's probably what, especially since it has a music video. A lot of people like music videos, so that probably helps a lot too. But yeah, it's just an awesome song. I remember when I heard it on the album. I'm just letting the songs play. I'm not too interested in lyrics for a first time listen. I'm not usually too interested in song titles for a first time listen. I'm just absorbing the song, the music, the album. But when this song came on, I was about halfway through it, and I was like, "What song is this?" I had to go check it. It's the only reason I knew what song it was going in, because it was the only song that I was listening to. I was like, I need to go, what song is this in case I need to, check it out again. Maybe when the album's over, I need to put something else back on. All right. Those are my thoughts. Rolo Tomassi's The Flood of Light. That's where you guys come in. I pointed over there. You're over there. this is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you thought my analysis was accurate, if you have any background information, if you think I was wrong on anything. As usual, I'm open to being educated as well. There's certainly a lot of stuff that I'm not going to pick up on a first or even second listen, and I'm always open to hearing what you guys know, and maybe what your guesses or interpretations are. More perspectives are always a good thing. When you're done with comments, you can head up to the description box. In there is a link for Linktree. I'll take you to this menu right here. It has links for everything related to the channel. You can submit a special selection, email me, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord community, support me through Patreon, bunch of stuff. It's all there. Go ahead and check it out. Above the description box, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. We got one more video coming out right now, 50 seconds ago. It came out. We have another big train special selection for the week. And we do have our week filled out. We do have a big train special selection for tomorrow as well. So that's yeah, that fills it out for the week. And I'm super appreciative that we could do this. I know David was a huge inspiration to quite a few people. We've listened to Big Train a couple of times. Lots of comments in there about people who love this band, love David as a vocalist. There's some people in the Discord who have expressed extreme sadness, maybe extreme, definitely sadness though, about his passing. And I think that it's just a wonderful way to sort of celebrate some of David's contributions to music, and listen to some really great music as well. So I'm really glad that we could get all 4 special selections this week set for Big Train. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.